Now, I like buying watches, and I like buying good watches, and I like buying good watches at the lowest price that I can possibly find. In order to do that, I scour the internet for the best prices. Sometimes I end up buying watches secondhand, sometimes I end up buying them on sale from the original sellers, but quite often I end up buying from grey market, and quite often I end up buying from Ashford.com. And the only reason I do buy from Ashford.com is because they have the watch that I want, and they have it at the lowest price that I can find on the internet. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. And today I'm talking about my favourite watches that I've found on Ashford.com. I wanted to make this video because I've actually bought quite a few watches from Ashford.com. This is the first watch that I bought. This is my Glycine Moon Phase, and it's an incredible watch, and it was by far the cheapest place to buy it was from Ashford.com by hundreds of Australian dollars. So I absolutely had to buy it from that website, and when I bought it, it arrived very quickly. I was very happy with the service, and I was really happy then with the website. And as such, I've ended up buying a couple more from them, and I've ended up spending a lot of time on their website looking at watches. I've also ended up being an affiliate member with them, so the watches I'm going to talk about today, I am going to leave affiliate links down below. But that's not the reason why I wanted to make this video. I wanted to make this video to show you some of the amazing watches that are on there and do the hard work myself by going through all the watches that are on there, the hundreds of watches that are on there, and find some amazing ones to bring to your attention. Now, Ashford.com doesn't have all the watches that are out there, but they do have a lot of big brand watches like Hamilton, Tissot, Longines, even Omegas and things. And if they happen to have the model that you're after, in my experience, they're going to have it the cheapest priced on the internet. Now, when you are buying from Ashford.com, be aware there are lots of options to be able to get more discounts than the listed price. When you click on one of the listings, you'll quite often see within a few seconds, it'll pop up going, oh, here's an even better price for you. Or if you subscribe to our newsletter, we'll give you an extra 10% off. So if you end up buying one of these watches, make sure you take advantage of all the discounts that are available on this website. But what I wanted to do was find just my favorite watches on the website, watches that I've seen personally that I thought, oh, I really wouldn't mind buying that one, or just find some really cool watches that I want to share with you. But what ended up happening is I ended up finding a whole range of watches that sort of end up being like almost a watch collection. There's a dive watch, there's a dress watch, there's a vintage inspired watch, there's a chronograph. And I went, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. There's a whole range of watches, which you could almost buy like a whole collection just from this one website. So I want to share these watches with you today. Now, I'm going to be talking US dollars today. I'm not going to bother with sort of showing the different currencies. I'll leave that up to you to go and check out for yourself. You are going to be buying in US dollars, so you're going to have to do that calculation if you choose to buy those watches for yourself in your home country. And the first watch I want to show you is a dress watch. So this one is the dress watch tick for that collection. And it's the Hamilton Jazzmaster Thinline. And it's called Thinline for a reason because it's super, super thin. I did not know Hamilton did these watches. These thin lines, this one I'm going to show you here, is only 8.45 millimeters thick. Wow, that's really, really cool. This one's the H3852581. Now, the recommended retail I think is around about $945 USD, but you can get it for $330 US from Ashford.com. Now, the price you see on screen might be a little bit different to that. That's because you can add those extra discounts and things. So I'm probably sort of just going to mention a price. If it doesn't quite line up with what's on the screen, it's just because depending on when you click on the ad, depends on what price sort of comes up. So please disregard any differences between what you see and what I'm talking about. But this watch is a 40 millimeter case diameter. As I mentioned, only 8.45 mils thick, which is incredible really. 50 meters of water resistance, comes with a sapphire crystal and an ETA 2892-2. Now, being a Hamilton, you know it's going to be really good quality. Being a Hamilton dress watch, I think they do some amazing dress watches, so I think this is something that's definitely worthwhile considering. So if you are actually looking for a nice dress watch to buy, this one's really worthwhile considering. In fact, I would buy this one if I didn't already have a couple of dress watches in my collection. I only need so many dress watches in my collection, so realistically, buying another one doesn't really make sense to me. The next one on the list is from the dive watch section. Now, there are lots of dive watches on Ashford and there's lots of Glycine dive watches on Ashford. I've just picked the one that I personally like the best. This is the Glycine Combat Sub 42, the GLU0076. Now, I've seen it on Ashford for $319 US. These ones come with a 42 millimeter case diameter, 200 meters of water resistance because they're a proper sort of dive watch, these ones. Only 11 millimeters thick, which I think is really good for a automatic dive watch as well. I think that's quite cool. Features the caliber GL224, has sapphire crystal, and as I mentioned, if this one is a little bit boring for you, because I've sort of gone for more the basics of silver and black, because that's what jumps out to me is the one I like, there are a whole heap of variations of other combacks on this website. One of the good things about Glycine and about these Glycine dive watches in particular is if you don't like one, there's generally another one with a different dial, even different hands, different variations, different straps, comes with bracelets or not bracelets, and different variations in prices as well. So if you're interested in one of these Glycine dive watches, this is probably going to be the place where you're going to find it the cheapest. Now, I love vintage watches. I've got a few in my collection and I really, really like them, but I certainly understand why people don't want to own them. Because as much as I like vintage watches, I don't like vintage watches because they're a little bit of a pain sometimes. You know, if they're not working properly or if you're trying to get them fixed, and you know, I get why people don't like owning them, but it's nice to have something that looks at least like a vintage watch. So why not buy a brand new watch which has some vintage aesthetics to it? This one here is the Tissot Heritage. I've seen it listed at $459 US. Has a rather long name, so it's the 285.05.16.01.200. Tissot seems to have these sort of long serial numbers, but it's powered by a manual wind ETA 7001, which is very, very cool. 42mm case diameter, sapphire crystal, 30 meters of water resistance. I just keep getting drawn to these sort of style of watches, these sort of, you know, vintage inspired watches, or at least what I consider vintage inspired watches, especially when they're a modern day watch, with a modern day movement. I think it's sort of the best of both worlds for me. And of course you need a chronograph in your collection, or at least I like the idea of having a chronograph in my collection. And this one here is one that has grabbed my attention on a number of times. It's by Mido, it's the Baroncelli or Baroncelli, $540 US, which for an automatic mechanical chronograph, I think it's actually really, really good, especially a Swiss-made automatic chronograph. There's the M86074174, has a 42mm case diameter, 50 meters of water resistance, 22mm lug width, featuring a Swiss automatic movement. Mido is in that big sort of Swatch Group conglomerate, so it's going to be powered by a really cool movement as well. And I just really like the look of this one. I like where they've sort of put the subdials. I like the hands on it, and I really like the pushes as well. One thing about chronographs that sometimes put me off is what the pushes look like. I like when they're slightly integrated into the case. So this one here, I think looks really, really cool. And of course, you know me, I love pilot watches. I don't need any more pilot watches, so I'm not going to be buying this one, but I had to put a pilot watch on this list. This one is by Alpina. It is an AL525NN4S4 for $560 US. And when you look at Alpinas, they are actually relatively expensive. You don't tend to find them too cheap. So this one's actually not priced badly. Now there's a little bit of an interesting, different one for me. Slightly bigger case as well, being a pilot watch, has a 44mm case diameter, 100 meters of water resistance, only 10.7mm thick though, which I think is actually not too bad for this thing. It is powered by a caliber AL525, and it has this sort of bronze sort of look to the case as well, which I actually think looks kind of cool, especially with this sort of style with that crown on the side. I think it's a kind of a cool looking watch. And a watch in the collection that I've been more and more drawn towards, more and more wanting in my collection, is something that's fun, something that's a little bit different, maybe even a little bit quirky. Now that I have a few more watches in my collection, I feel that I am able to have that style of watch in my collection. If I had a very small collection, maybe it wouldn't be introduced into it, but the more and more I have a slightly bigger collection, it is nice to have at least one watch that you can pick out and it really makes you smile. Not just because you like it, but because it's quite a fun. And this is the one that I've picked out to fill this sort of fun factor watch. It's another Tissot. It's a T-Classic, the T035428360510. Wow, they should get some better names for their watches. $309 US. Now, it looks like a big watch, but it's actually only 39mm of case diameter. 100 meters of water resistance. It's powered by the ETA 2825-2 with a 22mm lug width, has a see-through case back, and you can see that it is a very interesting dial. It's a fun dial for me. It's something that I think will draw some attention, and it will draw my own attention when I'm wearing the watch. Having the sort of the main dial up here, the little sub dial over here, some text here and there, I think it's a little bit fun. And for me, I find that a little bit fun. And at this sort of price for a Tissot automatic with that caliber in there, I think that's really well priced for a fun factor, well-made Swiss watch in my collection. Now, of course, if you are going to have a collection, you need a sort of a daily wear watch or a beta watch. Now, normally for me, this can be a G-Shock, or it can be something that's, fairly sort of affordable that I don't mind beating around. But I wanted to put something a little bit different, a little bit interesting in this sort of category. So I opened myself up to what is on this website, and this is the one that I was drawn towards. Let me know what you think about this one. This is the Mido Multifort. It's $359 US. It is the M0326073609000. Is Mido and Tissot related? They sort of seem to be using their own sort of naming conventions. But it's a bigger watch, this one, and is unfortunately it's 44 millimeters, the case diameter, which makes it quite a big watch, which would probably slightly put me off buying this one. But I just really am drawn towards it for some reason. I really like that green dial. I really like the sort of vertical pattern on that dial, and has a really interesting case sort of finish to it. That case finish goes all over the lugs, all over the case, all over the case back as well, which is really quite interesting. It has 100 meters of water resistance as well, and it's powered by the Powermatic 80, which I think is a really big tick for this one. That's a great movement, and I'd be certainly happy to have that in any of my watches that I have in my collection. The last one I want to share with you is my most recent purchase myself from Ashford.com. It is my Hamilton Railroad. This is a beautiful watch. It's a good looking watch. It's slightly dressy, but slightly everyday, and it's just a really cool watch and a really nice size as well, because it's got a 40 millimeter case diameter. It only costs $450 US, which for me, for a Hamilton watch with this movement inside of this, I think it's the H10 movement, I'm really happy about it because I absolutely love it and I'm really enjoying wearing it, and that's why I wanted to put it on the list today. And one of the reasons I love it so much is that case as well. And I'm going to bring out the full review of this one over the next sort of few weeks or so, so keep your eye out for that one because this watch is particularly nice. Now guys, what do you think about my choices from Ashford? I really like this sort of grouping, and maybe you'll see why I sort of thought perhaps this could almost be a whole watch collection in this one video. It covers all the bases. Something fun, something everyday, something dressy, something to wear when you're out there doing sort of sporting stuff. And guys, if you're interested in this video and you did enjoy it, I really would appreciate it if you leave a comment, let me know what you thought, hit that like button, and check out these videos next.